And I go, where's your money? They said, at the bank. They came in at the appointment with sacks of cash. And I looked at them and I go, I thought you said your money is in the bank. They go, yeah, it's in the safety deposit box and they took it out to come to give me. I'm like, no, no, no. I do not accept cash. Sorry. You got to put it into your checking account.
Welcome into Impactful Conversations, stories and lessons for financial advisors. I'm your host, Dave Edgecombe. Joining me today, Dr. Emily Loy. She is the founder and president of Wealth Creation Insurance Services based out of Los Angeles. Thank you so much for joining us, Emily. And you've got a really unique practice. You've got a really interesting practice. That's why we've put you in the hot seat today based on your background, but also the clientele that you service. But before we can get into any of that, I have to know, Paso Doble or Argentine Tango, which one do you prefer, and why is the Charleston a terrible dance?
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I love the Argentine Tango. That's actually one of my favorite. Besides, I do ballroom, but more on the Latin division of ballrooms, like the rumba, cha-cha, paso doble, the jive, and the samba. So those are the 5 dances. But Argentine Tango is a different division, not inside ballroom, but I love the Argentine. So actually, my last performance was an Argentine Tango a few months ago.
Oh, so you're actively performing?
I did a performance in December. So I did about, I think, 7 shows last year.
So you truly are the triple threat because, yes, you work with retirees and as a financial advisor right now, but your first career, so to speak, you're a legitimate doctor. You're a real doctor.
I am in internal medicine, or I was in internal medicine, and then I switched gear, and then ballroom really is just my passion. Has nothing to do with that, but my passion.
So I'm curious about that transition. So you spent years working in the medical field and then saw an opportunity. How did that evolution kind of come about to where you are now?
Actually, I never thought that I would go into the financial industry because my entire family on my extended side of family, cousins and everybody's are all in medicine. And so I follow the family tradition and I really love medicine. And I always thought that I would never want to do anything else. And then at some point, when I was 38, and I told this story before and people laughed because I said that I would never want to get married or have kids and I just want to dedicate myself to medicine. And then at the age of 38, my biological clock started ticking and then I decided that I wanted to have a child. That's when I rushed to get married. So my daughter arrived when I was 40. And at that time I was still working. But when I look at it, oh, why am I saving everybody except my own child, because hospital hours are like 12-hour shifts.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
it's
we
a
had to
grind.
be on call all the time. Like every third day we were on call. And I didn't want to leave my daughter at home to the nanny. And I looked at her and I felt like I am saving everyone else while my child, I'm not bonding with her. So that's at that point I decided I wanted to look for a different career path that will give me that time flexibility so that I can spend the quality time with my daughter. So it arose more from a selfish reason more than anything. So I looked into multiple different fields and then I found this. I found the financial industry. And I fell in love with it immediately. And it's funny. And at that time, my friends were all telling me, they said, well, they have never seen me sold a candy to anybody. They're like, how do you think you're going to go into sales? Because to them, everybody thinks of it as sales. And I said, well, you know what? Give me 6 months and I want to give it a try and see. And so instead of going in like half in, half out, I decided to quit cold turkey and completely went into it. Because the way I saw it is that if I just always thought, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to dabble a little bit. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to go back to the hospital, right? And if that's the case, then I will not put 100% into it because I believe that anything we do, we have to put 100% of our efforts into it to make it work. And so that's when I just quit one day and I told my parents and I said, look, I'm going to do this and I really want it and I am very interested. And my parents stopped talking to me for a few years.
Oh, I hate to bring up sore subjects, but
Yeah.
it's a fascinating transition. And I'm curious to know what sort of parallels you see, if any? Because I've heard advisors of ours talk about how their time is valuable,
Mhm.
much like a doctor's time is valuable, and treating their practice, their financial practice, like a medical practice.
Mhm.
And I'm curious to know if you see any of those similarities.
There are some similarities, but there's also some differences as well. And I think it's more subjective. It depends on each advisor. There's no right or wrong way. But to me, yes, my time is very valuable. And it's very similar to in the hospital where each patient in the hospital would have a certain amount of time with the doctor. And let's say if the appointment's 15 minutes for each patient, then you keep to that because there's another list of patients waiting throughout the day. However, when it comes to the financial industry, especially when I feel like clients really need more time and I don't want to rush them out, even though I keep to a schedule and everybody, when they come and see me, they have to have an appointment. I don't want a situation where if a client's talking to me about their finances, there's another client sitting out there waiting because it's for their privacy, right? They can hear even if the door is closed, they could still hear stuff. And so usually I schedule it far apart so that clients will have the time to really be comfortable instead of feeling, okay, I have another 15 minutes. Oh, I have 10 minutes. I got to get out of here. Right. So I don't want to push them away. And even though my time's valuable, but I feel like the client's time is also very valuable. And the fact that a lot of them, let's say if they have $1 million policy, right? Portfolio that they have saved for 30, 40 years before they retire. If they spend that many years to save up their money, I don't want to rush them out in like an hour. If they need 2 hours, I'll give them 2 hours. And if they still don't feel ready, the next time they come over, okay, we can meet them another 2 hours because that's their entire lifetime savings. And I want to make sure they understand all their options. There's not just one right way. And I usually give them a couple of options to see which one they like better. And then I discuss it, sometimes even 3 appointments. Sometimes it's just once. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3, as many as it takes to make them feel that, okay, they're in the right thing. I don't want a situation where they're sitting there one day in their rocking chair and thinking, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. I wish I didn't sign that. Right. And we all know in this industry, there's always a contract attached 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And if they were to surrender that, there's a penalty. And so I want to make sure that they're very comfortable.
So you've been at Impact for about a day and a half. You came here, recorded some TV, worked with a lot of people here at Impact. I haven't found a single person that's been able to say a bad thing about you. Not that I'm out here
Oh,
looking, and not that I'm out
thank
here.
you.
The reason I say this is because it speaks to a bedside manner. This concept, especially in the medical world, of how does the doctor treat their patient,
Mm.
and being cordial, but being able to translate, so to speak, heavy material so that somebody understands it. And I want to know how you found that skill set, because clearly you have a very strong bedside manner from your medical experience, how you've been able to kind of convey that to the financial field and treat people that way.
Thank you. So I think
It is
that
a compliment. It
it
is a
is a compliment,
compliment.
and I really appreciate that. And I feel that also with any field, whether it's in medicine or any field, it also is depending on that person's personality
Yeah.
too, right? So sometimes it's nature, that's how we're born. And then another way with medicine is that I remember clearly my attending physician at the time when I was training, and he told us, he said, the difference between being a good doctor and a bad doctor is not how much you know, but how are you going to be able to translate that knowledge to your patient. And the example he always reminded us is that if you have a 6-year-old child that's sitting in front of you and you can sit that child down and tell him what is wrong with him for him to understand it, and not some, medical jargons that nobody, if you throw it out there, nobody would understand. And so I always remember that because, for example, between doctors, we're going to use all these terminology that not even an adult patient who, have never heard of it. And if we tell them that, it's like, what good does it make, right? And so I take that to heart while I was practicing medicine, but also as I'm in this industry. If it's something, there's a lot of terminologies, as you know, in these, in the financial world as well, right? But I sit them down, and all of my clients, I would tell them, I explain it in layman's terms so that I break it down to the point that it's very simple for them to understand. So that way, there is no I guess there's no misconception or there's no miscommunication because a lot of times I remember doing policy review for clients and they said they signed stuff in the past years ago with other advisors and they had no idea what they signed and then they found out it's totally different from what they thought it was. And so I took that to heart and I want to make sure every person understands what they're getting themselves into, right? And what does participation rate means, right? People are, oh, what's participation rate? Nobody really cares to understand or care to explain to their clients. And to me, I think that makes me be able to connect with my clients and it makes them feel at ease that okay, it's not a strange world, right? They know what they're getting themselves into.
There's also the clientele that you service. You work predominantly with the Vietnamese community. I mean, you do a radio show in English and you do a radio show in Vietnamese.
Well, I think it's a niche market, but I think I have 2 different niche market that I work with. It's
It
kinda
gets oh
strange.
boy, it really siphons
Yeah,
off from there
yeah,
too.
it's like 2 completely different niche market, but I'm in both
Okay.
currently, and it just happens to be that way. And the one niche market is with all the hospitals as well that I think I mentioned with you. I mentioned it to you that all of the doctors, it's in the Section 162 executive bonus plan. So these hospitals slash medical clinics, dental clinics, they'll come to me and then I help them set it up. Then a lot of times that the employer, that medical clinic or hospital would be contributing 100% of all of the premiums. And then whenever that doctor qualifies, they'll get sent my way and then I just Zoom with them. So that's on that end, on the hospital end. And then the other side is with the Vietnamese community that I do weekly radio shows with them to more of client information. Like I share a lot of things, just common knowledge that I think that financial knowledge that the community ought to know. And so over the years, people really look to me. For example, the beginning of the year, when new rules change, and I'll tell them, hey, the Roth IRA contribution now is 700, right, 7,500 instead of 7,000, right? So things like that, and they really appreciate that.
So how did that come about? Was that more just an opportunity or did you feel like there was a real void that you needed to fill?
Growing up as an immigrant, I came over here with my dad when I was a bit younger, but I saw how my dad worked all of his life and he worked extremely hard. So back in Vietnam, he was a principal of a high school. However, when he came over here, the credential, they didn't observe the credential over
Mm.
here, so he had to go back to school and he worked really hard. He was working 2 jobs, extremely hard to put food on the table for us. And, but at the end of the day, by the time he was ready to retire, he didn't have a lot in his 401k because he didn't know much about it and no one really talked to him about it. It's there, but unless the employer have education and say, oh, you really put into this and save and all that, nobody really was taught. And I feel that in general, as a population, everybody, the financial knowledge is not taught, but I think within the Vietnamese community it's even worse, right? And people, because they come here as immigrants, they have to make ends meet and they didn't have time to really go out there and learn. And so when they work so hard, but at the end of the day when they're ready to retire, there's no money. And that's the repeated themes that I've seen in many families, my parents, friends, and everybody. And even in my generation, I've seen a lot of that too. People, it's not even the language, right? Some of them can speak fluent English, but still they don't take the time or they don't have the time to really learn it. And so I made it a point that I want to make sure I share this knowledge with everyone.
I'm glad you bring up the language barrier because that was my initial thought was, oh, it's surely that's the issue, but it's almost more cultural from what I've researched. And it feels like that's the part where you come in as an educator to kind of bridge that gap and kind of mend some of those fences.
Some of that is cultural and some of that is also history,
Mhm.
right? It's funny that we're talking about history, but it's true that after the war, after we lost the war, the government, the communists came into the country and then they shut everything down. So all the banks were frozen and people, everybody, not just my parents and my parents included, the accounts, all the bank accounts were frozen. They completely lost all their money. So no money left for anyone. And so a lot of people had no food and all of that. And so from that experience as a country, 99.9% of the immigrants who came to this country experienced that. And because of that experience, kind of like the way I see it, if you as a child put your hand on the stove, right,
Mhm.
on the burner and you got burned, the next time you see the burner, you're not going to put your hand there, right? And I think that's the experience that they had. So when they're over here, they don't trust any banks or any financial institution to keep their money because they want to make sure that, oh, what happened if that bank goes bankrupt, files for bankruptcy, or that financial institution is no longer there? What's going to happen? And so, because of that, people are scared. So, they want something, they either leave their money at home or they want to invest in something more tangible, something they can touch. Like if there's a rental property, they can, stop by, collect rent, touch their house, see their house, like,
Mhm.
oh, that's mine. But instead of trusting the 401k company, some financial institution to keep their money. A lot of people don't even keep much money in the bank, only enough to really pay bills. And so that's when over the years I started to come in and say, hey, this is America. It's not the same. And then there's other things like the California Guarantee Association that I talk to people. If the financial institution files for bankruptcy, this is what's going to take over. Similar to FDIC when you
Mhm.
see at the bank and things like that. So education, right? Just sharing knowledge about these things and people start to open up.
Do you feel like or do you feel like with the Asian American population that there is they assign this value to cash, but are worried that if they put it somewhere else or that they put it in a bank, they no longer have value? I mean, you gave me a tremendous story about your mother
Oh
yesterday.
yeah. So that story, cash is king, right? That saying. But it's very true though, because they're very scared and they love cash, and because they figure when, say, the were to come, right? Let's say we have wars with Afghanistan or whatever, they can take their cash and run. Versus if it's in the bank shuts down. How are they going to get their money back? But because of that, people just starts to hoard cash. And that's what my mom used to do, right? So she would buy these like wine bottles, pour away the wine, and then wash it really clean, and then roll up $100 bills into little things and stuff them into these bottles, put the cork on, and then she would go into her bedroom, dig up the dirt there, put it there, and put the towel back on. And so this is a true story. I remember when I was at UCLA, so I was living off campus. I mean, I was living on campus, so I was away from home. I moved away. I was like an hour away.
Mhm.
But in the middle of class, she called me frantically, come home, come home. And I go, Mom, I'm in class and I'm an hour away. What's going on? She said, all the money disappeared. And oh my gosh. And so I had to come out of class, rush home. Then I found out that my dad started digging, and of course, when they put the tile on, nobody would know, right? They put cement around it, so it looks like the rest of the floor.
Yeah.
But they had it there for probably 5, 6 years. So I guess the dirt underneath started to push away like that, and
Uh-huh.
it started to move. So my dad put his entire arm length in there, and he looked for it. Nothing was there, and I go, Mom, no one came into this house. How can they even know where it is?
Yeah.
You guys seal it up, right? And so I told him, just take another piece of tile out that way, the other tile. So he took two other ones, finally found it, like moved from here to like there, a couple of feet away, right? And he got really scared. But yeah, that's the story. And a lot of old people, my parents' generations, are all like that. Either they store cash or they've been known to buy gold and just kind of leave it at home. But then it brings another story where their life is in danger because people know that these Asians, these Vietnamese people leave cash or gold at home, and there's a lot of robberies that's been going on in the community as well. So I just wanted, when I saw all these issues, and I wanted to make sure, okay, I want to do something so that the community, they understand that, okay, we're in America, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be the way it used to be. Yes, that was the past, that's where we came from, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm very happy to say that over the years I've gained a lot of people's trust in the community.
Well, you just said the magic word there, trust. I mean, trust is so valuable yet so scarce.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm curious to know, what's your secret? How do you impart that trust to the people that walk into your door that are extremely skeptical of institutions and extremely skeptical of handing their money over to anybody?
I think whenever you work with a heart, that people can feel, right? There, I believe that no one's really dumb. Sometimes people could blow things up and just blow smoke, right? And just say whatever to promise clients the world. And then once client signs that contract, they realize it's not the same. But for me, anything that I feel that it's not going to benefit that client, even if it's going to bring me a lot of money, I'm not going to do it. And it sounds, people's like, well, that doesn't sound right. But really, when I work, money will come. That's the way I see it. Doesn't matter if I earn more money or less money, but money will come as long as I work hard. But if I work with a heart that if I put myself in that client situation after talking to them 10, 15 minutes, I know exactly, what their financial situation is and when they're going to retire, how much money they have. And I know, like in my head, I would know, okay, this is the program that I want to put them in. But if they say, oh, well, I heard this on the radio, can you give me this? And if it's not a fit, I'll tell them right away it's not a fit. Because sometimes, because people listen to me over the years on the radio, they feel that they just know me or they want to support me. They come and bring their business to me. It's like, hey, here, do this for me. I heard this. And I go, no, this is not a fit for you. And they're like, but I'm giving you business. How come you're not taking it? I go, especially, for example, if it's a life insurance, right? They bought it maybe 15 years ago when they're much younger, even though it may not have all the living benefits like the newer policies nowadays, but it's going to cost a lot more 15 years later, right? And so I look at them and said, no, it may not have this, but it's much cheaper. So why don't you keep it? And they look at me like, oh, I'm asking you to replace it. Why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, why aren't you
Right?
doing what I
Right.
want?
So I mean, I will tell them, hey, if you really want to, I'll do it for you, but I'm letting you know that there's no added benefit for what you're doing. So I just feel that for me, if I'm in that situation, if I'm not going to put myself into that product or into that program, then I'm not going to do it for my client because everybody's money is valuable and they work really hard for it. So I just want to make sure that I bring the best product to them, the best program, whatever it is that they need.
I don't want to make you the spokesperson for the Asian American population, but I have a stat that I find to be very intriguing, and I want you to kind of digest it for me. So, according to a report by Prudential Financial, Asian immigrants save or invest 47% of their income. Asian Americans born here save or invest 37%. The U.S. average, 10%.
It's actually very true.
So what is it? What do you make of that?
Because I think that it all comes from a cultural thing as well as, like I said, history. So Asian people, they work and they save money because they've been there where they didn't have anything, no food, no clothing, right? And so they always had this thing in their mind, oh, what if this happens again? Or, they have to make sure they save for the rainy day, right? Whereas I think with our culture here in America, it's more so, it's a credit card culture, right? Everybody, because that's all over oh, you just charge whatever you want and you just worry about today, having fun today first, and then the future comes later, right? So it's like the way of thinking is very different. And I think sometimes I try to bridge that gap by telling these other families, like, yes, it's good to save money, but you also need to live. You don't want to wait until you retire at 67 either. You want to save enough money, but if you have no money, all you do is invest into your 401k and you max it out and then you do everything else and you have no money, you're not living, right? So life is really not, it's not like the destination, it's the journey of getting there. You have to enjoy it along the way as well. But saving it is also important because if you don't save when you retire, you have no money, and how are you going to live for the next 25, 30 years in retirement if all you save is 100,000, right? So I've seen a very big difference over the years like that as well. And like I said, I think it's both cultural and history has something to do with it.
Well, the idea of saving money almost sounds twofold in that, yes, it's good to save, but it's not, you don't want to save your money in your mattress. You want your money to be able to work for you. So
Yep.
is that another conversation that you're having to have with clients about, yes, there's saving, but there's also letting your money work for you?
Yeah. So that's what I preach on the radio every week. It's like putting money under your mattress or in your safe. It's not if you have 100,000, 20 years later, it's still going to be 100,000. And then there's inflation
Yeah.
and the value is not the same. Your purchasing power is not the same. And so I tell them, if you work really hard for your money, you want to make sure that your money also works hard for you and not just leaving your money sitting there idly and doing nothing. And so when I say it enough, it's like a broken record. So eventually they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. So sometimes I feel like I'm a broken record, but people actually do appreciate that over the years. They did tell me there were some touching stories that they told me when they first heard me. They thought, oh, it's a bunch of baloney. But over the years after they heard me for long enough, they decided, okay, this is what they want to do. So people brought like a lot of money. And this funny story. Somebody a couple of years ago asked me, "Oh, I have this much money. Can you do this for me? Because I heard you about, talking about these investments." I go, "Sure." And I go, "Where's your money?" They said, "At the bank." And so I said, "Okay." So I made the appointment. They came in like the next week at the appointment with sacks of cash. And I looked at them and I go, "I thought you said your money is in the bank." They go, "Yeah, it's in the safety deposit box and they took it out to come to give me." I'm like, "No, no, no." I go, "Yeah, I do not accept cash. Sorry. You got to put it into your checking account, write a check, and I will give you the address, or you can come here and I'll give you, pre-stamped envelope for you to mail it off, but I do not touch anyone's money. Don't give me cash." And financial institutions don't accept cash either, right? And it's just funny. Like they're $100 bill and they're really heavy. It's like over $1 million in cash. And I just looked at it. I'm like, what? This is what hoarding cash, but people do. They put it at home, the banks. And I've had clients who told me that they lost money, even though in a safe deposit box at the bank, there has to be two different keys. The staff at the bank has to have one key, and and then the customer has to sign in. And both of them have to put the keys in together to open it up, but they still lost money. And it happened. So there's crazy stuff that I've heard over the years.
I'd say that,
Yeah.
yeah, it was at the bank. Technically, they were right.
So then from then on, I learned my lesson and I go, okay, is it in your checking account, in your CD, or is it in your safety deposit box? So I became very specific from that point on.
There's one last thing that I want to cover, and it's multi-generational households.
Mhm.
Because in the Asian American community, there's this mindset that the sons have to take care of the parents. And you see a lot of multi-generational households. And I'm wondering how that impacts the conversations that you have. If you're having to include beneficiaries that aren't just children, but are their parents as well.
Yeah. So it becomes a little more complicated because, for example, if these parents wants to start a program, they're now ready to retire, they want to roll over their 401ks. Instead of them coming to me, or usually they would come to me alone, and then they'll say, "Oh, yeah, but I want to talk to my son. Oh, yeah, I want to talk to my daughter." And usually in the first appointment, I would say, "Bring your entire family, whoever that's going to have a say in this, bring them." And then I can explain to everyone at the same time. And they usually say, "Nah, they said it's okay, whatever I decide." But then after that, I talk to them, they're like, "Yeah, but let me run this by them." And then I'll go home. But what I explain and how they explain it back to their kids will not be the same. So I say, okay, then there's gonna be a miscommunication somewhere. How
Yeah.
about this? Either I hop on a phone or bring them back out to the office, and then let's talk about that together. Let's discuss that together. So even though for Americans, they may say, "Well, this person has nothing to do with it. Why are you talking to this person?" But really, it's the parents. If they're in their 60s, they're ready to retire, they trust their kids. Their kids could be in their 30s or 40s, but they trust their kids to give them that piece of advice. Even though they may not know a lot, but it's their own family, and they want to make sure that, okay, they want to listen to what this child has to say, right? To what their children has to say. And so it's okay, and I understand that. So I usually say, "Oh, just bring them out or call me," and then I usually meet with them. And then the kids say, "Oh, okay, mom, let's do it." And then that's when they do it. So yeah.
Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I find your story fascinating, and I'm glad that you were able to share it with us in the multifaceted kind of evolution of your practice and how the medical led into the financial, and then also the markets that you work with predominantly.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and it's an honor that you thought of me and that wanted to talk to me. And I'm very honored.
Well, I got to go dig up some bottles in my yard that I've got money stuffed into because apparently that's not a good idea.
But actually, you know what though? Sometimes it's happened before where people hide money. They were hiding it in different places and they didn't even tell their children. Then they pass away and then they sold the house to the new family and the new family found money. And we've had that in the community as well.
I stand corrected. I'm gonna go home and pull some drywall down and see what I can find.
There you go.
Emily, thank you so much, and thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed Emily's story, and we hope you stick around on our YouTube channel. It's a great place to grow your practice. There's all kinds of resources, whether it's Selling with Stories, House Rules, or any other podcasts that we have in impactful conversation. So please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.